March the 4th, 1982. John Belushi is one of the most famous faces in America. Hollywood royalty.
John is an American hero, and his life was an American tragedy.
We all thought we were invincible back then. I mean, who doesn't when they're 23, 24 years old?
He was a good man, but a bad boy, but extremely funny.
He's a comic genius with a fatal flaw.
John did everything in his life to excess.
He was on a binge.
I was going to go out there that night. It was just that close.
Tragically, in 24 hours, Belushi will be dead, poisoned by a toxic overload of drugs. Los Angeles, March the 4th, 1982. It's midday, and John Belushi glides down Sunset Boulevard on his way to a power meeting. It will be his last. This is the beginning of his final 24 hours alive. Belushi has been using cocaine since he arrived in LA 4 days ago. His meeting is with the two men who, more than anyone, have been responsible for making him a star. Michael Eisner, the president of Paramount Pictures, and Belushi's manager, Bernie Brillstein.
The purpose of the meeting was to decide what movie John was going to do for his commitment to Paramount. It was like George Clooney. They were coming to talk George or John into this movie.
At the meeting, there's just one item on the agenda, Belushi's next movie. Eisner wants him to star in The Joy of Sex, a farcical takeoff on a popular sex manual. He's convinced it'll be a surefire moneymaker.
They saw him as a star that could put people in the seats, and there was a project that was hanging around the studio that wanted to get made. They had an option on it. They'd paid money to get it written, and they saw John as the expressway to get it done.
Belushi resists. His instincts tell him that The Joy of Sex will be a career-damaging disaster and a personal embarrassment.
I don't need nothing, baby.
He was saying, you have to read it, you're not going to believe it. And, you know, and so they want me to wear a diaper in this movie. That's how it's going to open, like I'm a baby in a diaper.
I promise you it's going to be great.
During the meeting, Belushi receives a call from his friend and fellow actor, Dan Aykroyd. Aykroyd gives him some advice.
Hey, Dan.
Oh, don't do that piece of shit. Are you kidding me? Come on. Get away, get away. Get out, get away. Come home. It's the spring. Things will happen over the summer or the fall. We'll figure something out. I was writing Ghostbusters right then, which he would have been in. And I said, don't worry, John. We're going to cover it. We're going to do great stuff, you know. Don't be pressured to do this. Come home.
Sounds good. Yeah, bye. Bye.
Belushi flatly refuses to do the movie.
It was very nice. No one yelling. There was no crazy thing. And it was finally decided that it was a stalemate. You know, no one was going to do anything.
But Belushi has a hidden agenda. He's battling an addiction that's getting the better of him.
All right, I'll get it for you. How much is it gonna cost me? $1,800.
John Belushi, God bless him, is an addict A to Z. And just like every other addict, it's a deadly disease. And there's always reasons that people use, but fundamentally it's the addiction that kills them.
Just 3 years earlier, Belushi had the #1 movie, the top-rated TV show, and the #1 album, all at the same time. No other entertainer had ever done that.
Well, that's one of those career highlights that one gets once in a career. John had Soul Man at the top of the record charts. He had Saturday Night Live at the top of late-night television. And he had the #1 comedy in the nation. And we all shared the abundance, and it was a time of celebration. And you know, massive adrenaline rushes and just really good times.
It was a heck of a ride. It was a good ride, most of the time. For a couple of times, just hanging on, but it was scary sometimes. It was exciting. It was fun. It was innovative. It was different. Life with John was very fast. It always was fast. He always was on a fast track. He had a lot to do. He was very busy. John was a person who seemed on a mission in general in life. Like a little tornado. He just went through life and brought people along, and I think that most people enjoyed their time, but he did have more energy than most people.
Belushi was a comic genius. He was unpredictable, outrageous, a master of slapstick.
Like Keaton or Chaplin, any of those people, and I would definitely compare him to those people as a comedian. He had a great ability to physicalize. So he could make you laugh by raising his eyebrow.
He wanted to do more, to branch out into more serious roles. But the studios only wanted the Belushi they knew from his earlier movies.
They'd love to have me do Animal House Goes to Camp, Animal House Joins the Army, Animal House Rides a Space Shuttle, you know, but it's not the way I work. You know?
The trouble is, Belushi hasn't had a hit movie in 3 years, and the pressure is beginning to take its toll. John Belushi has turned down the sex comedy the studio have lined up for him. Next, he changes the agenda. He's borrowed money from his manager before and now tells him he wants cash to buy a guitar.
Come on, Bernie.
And we had cash in the office, and I gave him $1,800 cash. It was me. God knows I didn't know what was going to happen.
But the money is not for a guitar.
To be at the meeting that he allegedly came here for and to ask for money for drugs in the middle of the meeting, that's good drug addict behavior. That's how they behave. What's going through his head is, where am I going to get my next hit? Where can I get drugs?
With $1,800 in his pocket, Belushi's drug binge is about to hit a new and dangerous level. Belushi's cocaine addiction began 7 years earlier on the set of Saturday Night Live.
America was ripe for a new generation of humor, and we just hit it at the right time. Of course, we were absolute rebels, you know, and really ill-behaved and really bratty and ratty.
Why me, man? I mean, why me?
I think there was just an attitude of rebellion and irreverence, and don't trust the old order, which was part of why the show could succeed.
In the late 70s, there was also a new attitude to drugs. Cocaine was easy to source, and the television industry was fueled by it.
Monday, we come up with an idea. Tuesday, we wrote it. Wednesday, we read it. Thursday, we blocked it. And Saturday, it was on the air. It was, for a writer, it was great. We got to produce our own pieces. We were given a lot of autonomy. So from that point of view, it was wonderful. But it was video commando time. We were live. There was a lot of pressure and stress. I relieved it by punching out the ceiling in my dressing room so I had a little more air. People thought that was a temper tantrum. That wasn't. It was merely me physically trying to get a little more space in there because I was feeling claustrophobic. We let off steam on the weekends after the show.
To be there and work there was to be like in a subway station for the rich and famous. To be at a party where, you know, there'd be Keith Richards and William Burroughs and Baryshnikov and Andy Warhol, you know, plus the cast, plus people from Hollywood, you know, all in the same place. And so that's sort of unduplicatable. But it's also a great lesson because after that, you know, there's hardly a party that is going to really impress me now.
The cast once had to do 4 shows in a row without a break. By the last week, almost everyone was using cocaine to keep going.
It's 3 in the morning and you have to think of 3 more jokes before 5 a.m. and you're falling asleep and someone puts out a line of cocaine. You have to be extremely strong-willed not to do it, simply because you need to stay awake. Not because you're going to be funnier.
For Belushi and many on the show, coke was seen as just a harmless stimulant, virtually risk-free.
Business.
Thank you very much. You can go.
The entire culture had found this new thing, cocaine. And it's easy. If I take a sniff, you'll get fun. You're not putting a needle in your arm. It's very clean.
It was perceived as a drug that would help creativity, it would assist in loquaciousness and solving the world's problems and exchanges. So it was just prevalent and ubiquitous. And I think to John, it was something that kept him up at night. It stimulated his, his thinking.
But Belushi seemed to be using more than anyone else. He started going on binges.
I think with John in particular, his appetites were always big, and that's where, part of his problem was. He always did a little more than anyone else. He always went a little longer than anyone else.
John was a man of the night. He loved being John Belushi. He loved to sing in clubs. And at the time, I believe people were doing a lot of drugs. And I don't think he separated himself from the drugs. But it wasn't big-time drugs. It was just really... You can't go back and understand that time. It was a time of Studio 54. It was a time of great separation of young people and old people. And a lot of people were doing drugs who couldn't handle them, including adults, people, lawyers, everyone. So if you kept John out of trouble and kept him focusing on what he was doing and his career, which he really didn't care about that. Well, when you get hot so fast, you don't have time to care. You think, more, they'll keep giving me more.
John had an insatiable appetite for everything, for life, for all of the tastes and pleasures and sensations, from, motorcycle speed to, a good, to 3 pieces of cherry pie.
And he seemed like a bull. People thought he could do anything.
And at that period of history, people didn't acknowledge the potential risk. There was a lot of sort of whatever sort of feeling about drugs and alcohol. They had no distinction between abuse and addiction. Addiction, you can't stop, even when you want desperately to stop. It's a biological process. It's different for different people, and once you cross that line or throw that switch, you're there. It's really a question of pharmacology and biology than any real psychological issue. The speed with which you get there sometimes has to do with what's going on emotionally with you, because you're looking for solutions, trying to feel better, can't regulate, can't trust. But once you're there, you're there.
Everyone thought it was the hippest thing in the world. And no one thought they'd die from it. No one.
Without realizing it, over the 3 years he worked on the show, Belushi developed the addiction to cocaine that he would struggle with for the rest of his life. John Belushi has 22 hours left to live. Using the cash he borrowed from his manager, he's on a mission to score some drugs. He's barely slept in the past 4 days. He arrives at a friend's apartment. She has a valuable contact who's also there, Kathy Evelyn Smith, a dealer and junkie.
How you doing? Welcome to LA. How are you?
Smith has spent years traveling with rock bands, supplying them with drugs. The 3 of them do coke. Belushi's wife, Judy, is at their home in New York. She knows he left for LA on a mission to get high and tried to stop him.
He was on a binge, and, I wanted to, knew if he went back, it wasn't going to end. he had a mindset and just plowed right ahead. You know, made the choice.
Belushi's friend Dan Aykroyd is also in New York, at his office just a couple of blocks from Judy.
The thing is, with John, he didn't even have to buy it. You know, people loved him so much, they wanted to hang out with him and socialize with him. So they would buy it for him and give it to him. Like, you know, he would show up at a party and they'd automatically, here, have fun. And he would be collecting all this coke, and it was, you know, Judy's job and my job sometimes to confiscate without his knowledge and to get rid of it.
With his wife and best friend on the other side of the country, Belushi is far away from those who care about him. He now takes some of the cash he got from Brillstein and gives it to Smith, sending her off to get more drugs. This time, it's not for cocaine. Belushi wants heroin. He's losing control, sliding deeper into his drug-fueled binge, and there's no one around to tell him to stop. Just 2 years earlier, Belushi and Aykroyd were about to take the Blues Brothers on tour. They'd created the characters on Saturday Night Live, and the movie had been a smash hit. But Belushi knew he had a problem, and he wanted to deal with it for the tour. He hired a bodyguard, Smokey Wendell, to keep him away from cocaine.
He said, you know, I have all this going on, the Animal House, the Saturday Night, and I'm working on these other projects, and all of a sudden, it's just going too fast for me. And if I don't somehow get a hold of myself and get control of myself, I won't be around in the next 2 or 3 years.
Smokey was great. He was ex-New York State Police, ex-Louisiana State Police, and ex-Secret Service. He had gone with Nixon to China. He was a very colorful and wonderful character who had John's best interests at heart.
I was asking him why he was so dependent on it. Why did you always have to feel the need to go? Because most of the time, it's usually basically loneliness, pressure, more insecurities in yourself that you can't live up to that. And I believe when we talked about it, it was that. People always wanting him to be funny, people always wanting him to be on. There was no space. So that's why he would have to go to Candyland.
On Belushi's last day, the drug that had once offered an escape was now controlling his every move. It's late afternoon, and John Belushi has less than 19 hours left to live. After doing cocaine with Kathy Smith, he asks her to score heroin. Belushi then returns to his apartment at the Chateau Marmont in Hollywood. He makes a number of phone calls, first to Brillstein saying he's changed his mind. He will do the joy of sex after all. Next, a call to Michael Eisner, head of Paramount, telling him the same thing. Belushi now phones Eisner's senior vice president, Jeff Katzenberg, and arranges to meet on Friday.
Tomorrow afternoon.
Sure.
In a typically outrageous Belushi move, he tells the Paramount executive to give him a wake-up call.
Okay.
Katzenberg writes it in his calendar.
Thanks.
The executives believe Belushi is now on board.
I have medical students every day in my unit, and I always train them to put their fingers in their ears when an addict is talking to them, because what they say is all bullshit, it's all obfuscation, it's all distortion, it's all their brain trying to find a way to get them out of there so they can continue using. So what you got to respond with an addict is how they make you feel, and learn to sort of intuitively read all that. And so this issue of John weighing out scripts and being so disturbed by that, there's no addict I know gets into that kind of nuance. It's more that he wanted to go use, he didn't want to do anything.
True to form, the next call Belushi makes is to Kathy Smith to find out if she's scored the heroin. He wants to hook up immediately.
Kathy, it's John. Yeah. How fast can you get here?
His brain at that point will be going, use or die, use or die. The brain believes if it doesn't continue using, and believe is not really an accurate word, it manifests through neurobiological mechanisms that if the individual doesn't continue using, they will die. So use or die.
Belushi shows no signs of slowing down. He and Kathy Smith spend the next 4 hours constantly on the move. Buying and consuming drugs, the pace frenetic and surreal. At one point, Belushi calls Dan Aykroyd in New York.
He left me a message, a slurred, drunken, kind of message that was just indecipherable. And I heard that on the answering machine, and then I just continued working.
But Belushi's message worries Aykroyd. He'd been on the receiving end of these calls before. He walks from his office to Judy Belushi's Greenwich Village apartment. He and Judy have to take action.
It was clear we, had to help stop him, try to get him some other kind of help. I think Danny felt very immediately worried. He may have been more in touch with the reality of it from having heard that tape.
They decide they have to rescue John and get him out of Los Angeles. Judy calls Smokey at his home in Virginia.
She said, do you think you can find some time for John? And I had always told her, never thinking it would happen. I would say, hey, if you ever need time, I will make time. Whatever I'm doing, I would do. And I said, okay, fine, I'll be out there tomorrow.
Smokey tells Judy he'll fly to LA and bring Belushi home. But tragically, he didn't get to make that journey for her. Judy and John were childhood sweethearts. They met at high school. She was 15, he was 17.
The first time I saw John, he was on stage. He was doing the varsity show, the big event in town. I'd seen a lot of these shows, and he was one of the best, and I knew it immediately. This guy has talent.
They grew up in Wheaton, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. John came from a family of hard-working Albanian immigrants.
His parents weren't really happy together, and I feel that he knew that, sensed it, and I think that, kids are unhappy if their parents are unhappy. And I think a little bit of his humor around the house when he was young had to do with learning early that he could make his mother laugh, that she was a good audience, and maybe a little bit feeling like by making her laugh, he was making her happier. But I think also as he grew up, he realized, well, I know, he said to me he could never make his mother happy. And I think, that's one of those things that kids really suffer from.
Dan Payne was Belushi's high school drama teacher. He remembers the first time he saw Belushi. It was at an audition.
The music director said, well, John, what are you going to do? He said, and he just started, he said, well, I was going to tell some stories, and he started telling things. He was like a stand-up, and they were really funny. And all you could hear, the other students waiting to audition, standing backstage, they were all laughing. So this guy said to me, this guy's hilarious. The kids just love him. We're going to put him in the show. He fit in everywhere, and I don't quite know why. He was short. He was stubby. I never, you've seen the pictures of him. I don't think you'd say he was a nice-looking kid, good-looking guy, but he was not, quote, handsome. He wasn't the big blonde idol kind of guy. He was just sort of there, but people, there was something about, it was a very magnetic personality.
By the time John finished high school, he was the football captain, the homecoming king, and voted most popular student. He liked to surround himself with people and always stood out in the crowd.
I would say that John needed the group. He was a tough guy. I mean, alpha male, Illinois, heterosexual, toughie, but with, an open heart. I mean, he was very sensitive and vulnerable, and this is partly the reason that he came to the demise that he did, that he trusted people.
Tragically, on his last day, Belushi now put his life in the hands of a known junkie. It was to be a fatal error. It's now early evening, and Belushi has less than 14 hours left to live. He and Kathy Smith arrive at the Roxy nightclub, a Hollywood landmark that leads to an exclusive upstairs bar on the rocks. Celebrities can do what they want here without being bothered. Slipping through a side door into the bar, Belushi is agitated, his mind racing. He's complaining to anyone who'll listen about the pressure he's under to do the joy of sex and the pressure of being John Belushi. Belushi and Smith go to the bathroom. A potent cocktail is being prepared, a mixture of cocaine and heroin that produces an immediate euphoric rush. It's called a speedball. Belushi has just upped the ante. He's about to inject cocaine, and he's added a powerful opiate to the mix: heroin.
It's an extremely powerful delivery of large doses of the drug right to the brain. And what you see in humans when they're delivering the cocaine by this mechanism, they begin behaving like laboratory animals. Laboratory animals, when you give them free access to cocaine, will use straight for a couple weeks and die. That's just about what humans do. They will either run out of money or they will die. And a binge on cocaine, as I've said, is where the first hit feels great, the next however many, each one feels subsequently worse until you develop a psychosis. It always develops. You know you're going there, and yet you can't stop from starting it. And once you start, you can't stop till you're done, till you run out of money or something horrible happens to you.
Belushi and Smith spend 5 hours at On the Rocks, making more than one trip to the bathroom. Belushi seems unable to stop.
By the way, if John Belushi stayed in Wheaton, Illinois, where he was born, he would have been the same guy. Same way. You can't blame someone for someone's drug problem. It's the person who thinks he can handle it, then all of a sudden he can't. And when you're doing drugs, what do you want of drugs? You don't want a career.
John was really good at creating characters, but he hadn't gone through the maturity, which there's no age for it. But I think maybe it was a little, it was late. He was 33 when he died. He hadn't gotten to the point where he let go of the child, didn't let other people define him, and decided for himself that he was who he was, a good person, worthy of everything good that came to him, and those kind of ideas that I think give you your strength. And he didn't have that.
On his last day, Belushi is a shadow of his former self. His body is slowly being destroyed by the drugs he's consuming. It was all very different when Belushi was in his 20s. After college, he moved to Chicago with Judy. It was here he got his start at the training ground for America's top comedians, the famous Second City Theater.
He knew that night. He said that night, "This is what I want to do. I'm gonna get up here one day."
In 1971, he did. He went straight to the main stage without having to train with one of the touring companies. That had never happened before, nor has it been repeated since.
Oh, it was incredible. He walked on stage, he didn't have to open his mouth. One knew that he had enormous presence, and then he turned out to be a good actor.
Belushi was a high-octane performer. He pushed at the boundaries for the rest of the cast.
Of course, it was the perfect scene for John because he was given permission to be insane, you know. And John was one of, like, our bellwether. He sort of rode point for us as our little comedy wagon train went out into the wilderness. If John went, wherever John went, you know, anything south of John was sane.
An actor has a very ambiguous position vis-a-vis an audience. He has to expose himself to them, so to speak, and he has to ask them for his confirmation. And there's something in him that needs to ask, and something in him which hates that need to ask.
There was no sign of the addiction problems to come that were to destroy Belushi.
When he was at Second City, I think he was still young enough and buoyant enough that he didn't need a lot of pharmaceuticals to amuse him. He was so just thrilled to be on stage. I don't think he was more pharmaceutically inclined than the culture around him.
He had an enormous amount of self-assurance and confidence, way beyond either his age or his level of achievement. He just knew he would make it, and you knew he would make it.
Chicago was, I think, a big formative time for John. He was on top of the world there. It was the safest place to be. He was successful. He was supported by his teammates. People would come in from out of town to look at him and say, "You're doing a great job. Come out and screen test for us." But he could always return home to Chicago. He could count on the audience to embrace him. He knew what restaurants to go to. He knew where to get coffee at 2 in the morning if he wanted to take a walk. He had nice roommates. He had Judy, who was fabulous and supportive in Iraq. It was he still had a dream. And so I think nothing could compare to those days.
After Second City, Belushi got his break on Saturday Night Live. But everything changed when he won a part in the low-budget movie Animal House. He became an international superstar overnight.
Opening night, I had never seen anything like it in New York. It was just crazy. The theater was crazy.
So it was a big night. It was a premiere, and it was in New York City, and he was like, one of the stars of the movie. And it was a moment of innocence, because he went forward from that room, and I don't think it was ever the same. It just took a turn. It wasn't all bad by any means. There was a lot of good that happened after that, but it was just sort of a real moment that changed after that.
Well, you get to those heady atmospheres, it's sometimes tough to stay anchored, and I think that was certainly a factor in the usage of the cocaine and the vulnerability of John, the people who were preying upon him and kind of sucking his energy in that psychic vampire sense,
It had taken Belushi just 7 years to make it. On his 30th birthday, he'd reached superstar status. He was #1 in every medium, film, TV, and rock and roll. But in 3 short years, he would lose it all. It's close to midnight, and Belushi is still reeling from the combination of cocaine and heroin he's been injecting into his bloodstream. After 5 hours at the bar, Belushi and Smith leave. Belushi tells Smith to stop the car. He opens the door and throws up. Now they're heading back to the Chateau Marmont, Belushi's final destination. At bungalow number 3, Belushi rushes to the bathroom and is sick again. Belushi and Smith smoke a joint. He picks up his guitar, strums a few chords, and passes out. A few seconds later, he abruptly comes to. At 3:15 a.m., Kathy Smith injects Belushi with one more speedball. It will be his last. Earlier, at the height of his fame, Belushi came close to beating his addiction. Before taking the Blues Brothers on tour, he hired bodyguard Smokey Wendell. Smokey's brief was to keep Belushi away from drugs. He was put to the test on his first day. Belushi was in a recording studio learning a song for the tour. Wendell spotted an outsider talking to Belushi.
These were people that would be commonly known as suppliers. They would be able to produce party favors.
Smokey watched the dealer go into the bathroom after talking to Belushi. Smokey then went into the bathroom himself and found the drugs.
John went into the bathroom, came back, said a few words to the guy, which I knew it was basically whatever was there was no longer there. John went back in the booth, guy went back in. So we did this 3 times. We played this game. 3rd time, John was getting really annoyed with the gentleman.
Smokey then approached the dealer standing by the coffee table.
And I said, you know, there are many ways to sweeten coffee. I happen to like sweet and low. Sweet and low looks very much like this. And I had poured it into the coffee. At that point, I said to the gentleman, I said, you know, we could do this all day. I just don't know how much money you can afford to lose. The guy, got totally very uncomfortable.
The dealer tried another tactic, slipping some cocaine into a cigarette pack. Belushi announced that he wanted a smoke and picked up the cigarettes.
And he was going to put it in his pocket. Well, then I knew that there was a favor in there. That turned into a physical altercation with John and I. It was a tug of war, and we were wrestling on the floor in the studio. And the 2 guys that ran the studio, they were, I don't believe this. I can't believe this. And we got up and I said, John, look, if you want to do this, then you don't really need me here. If you don't, I mean, this is going to happen every day.
It worked. We did a tour with the Blues Brothers, and that was grueling because we had, 20 shows in 16 cities. And, we were able to meter the dosages, and John performed beautifully and effectively, and we had a great, lucid, clear, creative time. And so Smokey worked.
Belushi kept clean for the entire tour. He desperately wanted to win his battle against addiction. And by the end of the tour, he was in such good shape, Smokey felt it was time to move on.
And we had him working out and losing weight, and he would become, he said, oh yeah, the highlight of my high tonight was I got 2 more push-ups in. But he would laugh, and that would be his way of saying, hey, I can do this. He would find time to come and talk to me. I would be asleep downstairs, and he would knock on the door. And it was basically, I think he was at that point where he didn't want to sleep, he didn't want to go out, and he just wanted to talk. And it would be either about the work or the job, plans, ideas he has, his wife, how much he loved Judy, how much she meant to him. And I mean, on more than one occasion, he would say to me, you know, whatever she needs, whatever she wants, don't ever question, you just do it. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. I said, well, then you can't question why we're sitting here together, because this is what she wants. And he just smiled, and he said, boy, you got me again. And that's when I knew, as we kept bonding, that he wanted this, and then it was becoming easier and easier for him. And at that point, I was looking to move on to the next, and I just said, you know, I think you're okay to go on. And I remember him being so disappointed. And I remember him saying to me, what is it? Do you want a car? Do you want, I'll pay you more. I'll pay you. I said, it's not that. You don't, John, you don't need me.
The following summer was one of Belushi's happiest, spent at his favorite place, Martha's Vineyard. It would be his last.
You know, it was beers and wines and occasionally a little of the green stuff, but no powders or pills that summer, and it's certainly reflected in the picture where he's standing with Judy belly to belly. He's got a blue shirt on and a hat, and you can see how good his color is. He's got the full weight on. There's no gauntness there. And it was a summer of body surfing, jeep rides, running on the beach, dodging sharks. He was truly off and relaxed then. Those were wonderful moments.
He did have more energy than most people, and that was his need to slow down sometimes was something he had trouble doing. But once he got slow, he was real slow. Put him on a beach and he could stay there all day. Just keep bringing some food, water, he'd be fine.
At the end of the summer, Hollywood came calling again. Belushi agreed to star in the comedy Neighbours with Dan Aykroyd.
Well, Neighbors, we shot at night on Staten Island, and again, at that time, Coke was ubiquitous, and everybody was using it like coffee. It was to keep us up at night, you know.
But for Belushi, it meant temptation.
He tried to what we call white knuckle it. He tried to just avoid all this. You can only do that so long. It's like trying not to eat. You can only go so long without eating. Eventually, you're going to eat.
He stopped lots of times. Yeah. He had a fairly long, seemingly successful time. But you know, in retrospect, clearly whatever that wasn't dealt with. He was just in abstinence. It's like the dry drunk, you know. If you stop drinking, but you haven't, it's the same thing. Whatever that is, whatever that's about.
Getting people off drugs is the easiest thing in the world. Anybody can get off drugs. The problem is staying off. And that's where the whole treatment process comes in. Now, many people believe, A, they can control it themselves, and you see this is not a volitional process, so they can't. Or that, B, they could substitute it with something else, like exercise and yoga and all these things. And that will work for a time. But inevitably, when there's a stress, when there's drugs available, they will relapse.
He could be triggered because he didn't feel, he had a scene on the show he really wanted to be on, and it wouldn't be on, and that could trigger it. He could have had some great success. It was so exciting that it triggered it. So I just think drug addiction, ultimately, there is some kind of chemical imbalance or dysfunction going on. And I think there seems to be new research all the time, and maybe one day someone can tell us all about this, but I really don't know. I just don't know.
Intervention back then was not a tool that was used. Today, if we had a problem like this, we'd get 6 to 10 people together. We'd get the guy or girl in a room and sit them down and say, it's going to stop, you're going into rehab, that's it, and the flex cuffs would come out. Now, I mean, now that's what we do. Back then, that was not, you know, not a technique that was widespread.
After filming Neighbors, Belushi's cocaine addiction took hold again. With each hit, he was slowly killing himself. And on his final day, he was far from those who could have saved him. It's just before dawn. John Belushi has 6 hours left to live. He's been injecting cocaine and heroin all day. He complains of feeling cold. Kathy Smith puts him to bed and turns up the heat. Belushi lapses into sleep or unconsciousness.
He's dying of his disease at this point. This is not an overdose. This is toxic, chronic toxic effects on the body, overwhelming him finally.
Smith writes a letter and orders toast and coffee from room service. At 10:15 a.m., she makes one last check on Belushi. He's snoring. She puts her drug paraphernalia, a syringe and spoon, into her purse and leaves. Belushi is now alone in the bungalow. His wife Judy and best friend Aykroyd are at home in New York.
Sure, I mean, I felt like I should have been with him that whole time out there. It would have been different if I was there. But you come back to a point where you realize, well, first of all, it might not have been different if I was there. And it's just a life, you know, life. You got to let go of it. You got to know that's what that's what happened. That's all that you can. There's no more. That's it. Can't redo. So.
Or I was going to go out there that night. You know, it was just that close. You know, it was really close, like a hair close. You know. Yeah. You know, of course, I will always feel for the rest of my life that maybe I didn't do enough, and but he was alienating us at the end as well, you know, and pushing us away, and he'd get real mad if you took the coke away, and you know, and you know, it was. But I'll live with that for the rest of my life. That we didn't get there in time.
Belushi has been lying unconscious in his hotel bed for hours. Then at 12 p.m., Bill Wallace, Belushi's assistant, arrives at the bungalow with a typewriter Belushi wanted for script writing.
John.
Wallace immediately senses something is wrong. He can't hear John's usual snoring.
John, come on. We're gonna be late.
He walks into the bedroom telling Belushi it's time to get up. Belushi is curled up on his right side. Wallace shakes him. There's no response. He discovers Belushi is not breathing. His first instinct is to call Brillstein.
We're in trouble. First words, we're in trouble. What do you mean in trouble? He's sleeping, won't get up? No, he's having a problem breathing. And I said, oh. And I went into action like I knew what I was doing. I had my assistant call 911.
John, come on, wake up, John. Come on, John, wake
Wallace
up.
pounds on Belushi's chest, tears in his eyes, crying, "You dumb son of a bitch."
Wake up! Come on, John.
I went to the Cedars-Sinai to wait at the emergency entrance so no one would know John was coming over.
At the Chateau Marmont, paramedics place Belushi on the floor. Not knowing he's already dead, they suspect a heart attack. They try to revive him, but soon give up.
Is that all you're gonna do?
Wallace protests, but they say it's too late. John Belushi died on the morning of the 5th of March, 1982. At the Cedars-Sinai Hospital, Brillstein waits and waits. The ambulance is not coming.
And finally, one of my assistants called and said, Bernie, you can come home, John is dead. And what do you do when you're alone in a phone booth? No one had a cell phone then. And one of your best friends died. You can't believe it. I, of course, felt responsible. You know? I know everyone says this wasn't your fault. He would have gotten the money someplace else. But I gave him the $1,800. You know? Do I wish I hadn't? Sure. It was his money. You know? He had made it for me. I gave it to him. And I guess the guitar is still there.
The police arrive at the Chateau Marmont, then the media. The word will soon be out.
The first thought I had was, Judy's going to hear it on the radio. I called Danny in his 25th Street office, got him on the phone and said, Danny, don't ask me what to do. I'm telling you, John is dead. It's not a joke.
I was writing Ghostbusters at the time, and I was writing a line for him when the call came from Mr. Brillstein that he'd gone. And I immediately got up and went outside to get to Judy. I didn't want to take a cab. I didn't want to be carried. I had to move myself. Otherwise, I would have just buckled to my knees. And I ran down to Judy's from 5th and 23rd. I ran down to Morton Street.
I heard someone punching the lock and run up the stairs, and it was Danny.
And I told her before anyone else knew, you know, that he was gone. And, but it was essential for me to get there before she heard it from someone else. So.
And, you know, that's a real good friend. So.
It was 2 weeks later that coroner Thomas Noguchi confirmed the cause of death.
The office issued the official death certificate described as acute cocaine and heroin intoxication.
An examination of Belushi's arms revealed that he'd been injecting for some time.
He had injection sites both sides. I mean, no, this is not an overdose. This is toxic effect of intravenous drugs. It's hard for me to believe that he was doing intravenous drugs for only 4 or 5 days. This does not look like that kind of situation at all. It's like somebody's been doing it for a while and finally dies of it.
Kathy Smith was arrested and eventually served 18 months in prison for her part in the tragedy. She was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. Every year, thousands of fans still make the pilgrimage to Martha's Vineyard just to stand at Belushi's grave.
So somehow he's just touched people in that way, and I think when you actually have people feeling that you've made a difference in their life, then they don't forget you.
Four years of television and 7 movies, and we're still talking about him. Isn't that amazing?
You get a sense that we do meet those who've gone before, and we meet them in the form that we knew them. And they meet us in the form that they knew us. And just for a while, not forever, not for eternity, there is a reunion there. And it's going to be one rockin' night. Gonzo journalist.
He was a genius.
Larger-than-life character.
Hunter, to his dying day, wanted to be thought of as an outlaw.
One of the most famous writers in the world.
Hunter was one of the funniest American writers in all history.
Hunter S. Thompson was a man whose life was fueled by drugs, alcohol, and the desire to expose the truth about America.
He represents everything that's wrong in this country. Down the line.
He was worshipped by fans, loved by celebrities. But in the end, it wasn't enough. After bringing his closest family members to his home in Colorado,
he went as long as he could.
He wrote the final chapter to his amazing life. February 19th, 2005. Hunter S. Thompson is at Owl Farm, his ranch and refuge just outside of Aspen, Colorado. He's 67 years old. In just 24 hours, he'll be dead. At the beginning of his last day, Thompson's 40-year-old son, Juan, and grandson, Will, are at the farm for a visit. Also present that day is Ben Fee.
Hunter's family came up to visit, and they were to stay for the weekend, and it had snowed, and Juan and Jennifer and Will were playing in the snow, and it was family time. It didn't happen very often.
But underneath the seemingly innocent scene, Hunter is hiding a dark secret. This is the last time he'll be seeing his family.
I think he must have known when he asked them down that that's when he was going to do it.
But before he goes, he has a few loose ends he wants to take care of.
Juan, get your ass in here, would ya?
What is it, Dad?
Something for you there.
Thompson presents Juan with a few of his most precious keepsakes. 2 silver cups that are Thompson family heirlooms, The box contains rare limited editions of an unpublished novel and an Aztec medallion, a reminder of Thompson's wild days.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. It's yours, okay?
He trusted Juan more than anyone.
Yeah.
And he knew that Juan loved him a lot. And he loved Juan a lot.
I can't take that, Dad.
Damn it all, I said take it. You understand what present is?
The preparations for his death in less than 22 hours have begun. More than 3 decades before, Hunter S. Thompson exploded onto the scene when he wrote Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, a series of articles describing a drug-fueled trip across the desert.
You can read it out loud. It's like poetry. It's the choice of words and the images and the narrative and the voice. It's just brilliant.
And he understood the way that writing works as a voice and the way it's like breathing and the importance of its sound. Writing is a very intimate form of communication. You can't shout it to people because there's no sound involved. When you read something, the sound is occurring inside your own head, and it's a result of the rhythms that are created on the page. And Hunter was a great student of these rhythms, and he understood writing physically.
It was fast, it was rebellious, and it was deeply shocking to mainstream America. Hunter Thompson became one of the leading figures of the 70s counterculture. His wild, drug-crazed antics, his politics, and his constant questioning of authority made him a hero for generations of young rebels across the globe.
I think probably Hunter mostly will be remembered as the wild man, the drug addict, the alcoholic.
He crossed divides, spending time with both the Hells Angels and President Nixon. He was immortalized as Uncle Duke in the Doonesbury cartoon strips. And twice, Hollywood came calling, turning his real-life adventures into movies.
There were people who were big Hunter Thompson fans who had never read his work. They liked the persona.
But his lasting legacy will be his writing. He broke the mold, creating a new kind of journalism, where he and drug-crazed antics became the center of the story. It was called Gonzo. By the end of his life, Thompson could look back on an incredible journey. He'd invented a whole new genre of writing, become a cultural icon, but his wild lifestyle came at a price. His body was now falling apart. A broken leg, 2 hip operations, and constant pain meant he could no longer live up to the legend he'd created. In less than 20 hours, Hunter S. Thompson will be dead. His final evening is spent in the cozy confines of his house in Colorado.
I met Hunter Thompson in the winter of 2004 at a party at his house, and Hunter asked me if I'd stay up there to write and doing some filming behind the scenes, and so I began going up at nights.
Why did we bet on this game?
Once you stepped into the kitchen at Owl Farm, you were in his world. You could see a Tiffany's clock from a close friend right next to a petrified beaver, Muhammad Ali's golden boxing gloves, things that you'll never see anywhere else. It's really quite a museum.
Ben Fee has been living at Owl Farm for several weeks, helping Thompson write a weekly online column and recording his time spent with Thompson on videotape. Thompson's second wife, Anita, is also there.
In hindsight, it was the perfect setting for Hunter. He had his son and his grandson and his daughter-in-law, and he had Anita. And those were the people who he loved more than anything at that point. And he wanted them to be around for the release of his soul.
In the week before his death, Thompson wrote that for him, there were no more games, no more bombs, no more guns, no more wild fun.
He'd been talking about dying ever since I knew him, but but talking about actually shooting himself for something like a year and a half, telling people close to him that this is what he was going to do.
He's now 67. He feels that going on is simply being greedy. All he's got to do is relax. What he's planning won't hurt a bit.
It was very succinct, very brief, and it was, I mean, the whole no more fun part is where the real meat of it is, in that Hunter realized that he just could not enjoy himself because he was physically as well as psychologically worn down like the eraser of a No. 2 pencil.
Unknown to his family, this is the last evening they will ever spend with Hunter Thompson. "67 years earlier, on July 18th, 1937, Hunter Stockton Thompson came into the world. He grew up in the conservative southern town of Louisville, Kentucky.
Hunter's early childhood was picture perfect. One could not imagine a more American family existence.
By the time he was a teenager, Thompson was already an important figure in his neighborhood. Lou Ann Murphy was his girlfriend.
We went to movies, we went to parties in people's homes. Sometimes we just hung out on my front porch. He was very confident, had a great air of assurance, and his body language just said, you know, I know where I'm going.
I haven't run across anybody who had the natural charisma that he had. You could walk into a room full of people, and the people would be gravitating to Hunter because he had a magnetism that none of the rest of us had.
His family wasn't rich, but Thompson wanted to be part of the Louisville elite. He used his charisma and early writing talent to gain access to the exclusive Athenaeum Literary Association.
The Literary Association gave him entree into that elite part of Louisville society. And I think he wanted desperately to be that.
A lot of them would be considered top young men in high school years in Louisville, Kentucky. He liked that.
But the picture book life changed forever when Thompson was 14.
His father, who had been this gregarious, quiet, but interesting, methodical individual, slowly but surely became fatigued, became ill.
A debilitating neurological disease was attacking Thompson's father. Eventually, he was admitted to the local veterans hospital.
And Hunter was completely powerless to do anything about it. It was a form of torture, you might say. And there he was, daily, watching his father wilt, wither, die.
On July 3rd, 1952, Thompson's father died. It hit the 14-year-old hard.
And I remember Hunter coming to my house at twilight, and we sat on our front porch for a long, long time, and then he would get up and pace. And I think he was just stunned.
An angry young Hunter Thompson started to lash out, vandalizing property and causing havoc around town.
He drank more than some of us did, and he had such a wonderful imagination. Instead of just drinking, he would want to go and do things, and some of the things were not great.
He pushed over mailboxes and smashed light bulbs and got drunk, you know, and chased after women, and he didn't go to school. He was fairly innocent, prankish, boyish behavior, which he sustained to the end of his life.
But now, Thompson, 52 years later, can feel his own body falling apart. He's in constant pain, and he's made up his mind. His death will not be slow and lingering. middle of the night at Hunter S. Thompson's farm in Colorado. He has less than 16 hours to live. His family has come for the weekend and are now gathered in the living room along with his second wife, Anita. They've been married for several years. At times, it's a volatile relationship.
Tricky Dicky didn't kick around anymore.
Hunter and Anita, they had their battles. They had their spats and their wars and yelling matches. They were like the Gonzo, Sid and Nancy. They could really have a go, but then, you know, they'd love each other right afterwards.
But tonight, Hunter is far from being the peacemaker. He and his wife are on a collision course.
At me.
Loaded?
I don't care if it's not loaded, just don't.
Dr. Gary Kennedy is a psychiatrist who specializes in the effects of old age.
Sober as a judge.
With increasing age, and especially with people that become physically frail, heavy alcohol intake has a direct effect on the brain. And what's important here is those effects can make one less conscious, less aware of the effect that your behavior is having on other people.
He was a very big human being, full spectrum. And that all the wonderful, exciting, good, kind, generous, all of that was absolutely true.
Not loaded.
I don't care. What do you mean it's not loaded? You're drunk.
The dark side of Hunter was really bad. He was vicious.
The fear, you know, of having a gun point at you, it's pretty terrifying. So that shook Anita.
This was not fun. This was not a fun person. This was a really pained, angry, tortured man.
Hunter's antics have started a row with his wife that will simmer for the remaining hours of his life.
You know what? I can't take you anymore. I hate you.
Oh.
41 years before, Hunter S. Thompson had left the stuffiness of Louisville, Kentucky far behind and was living in San Francisco with his first wife, Sondi, and their infant son.
I was very happy to be a mother. I had these two men in my life that I was madly in love with both. And so it was a very happy time for me.
Thompson decided to dedicate his life to writing. He began traveling, writing freelance articles for a variety of small magazines and newspapers.
He wanted to be a really good writer, you know, and he was so disciplined. I mean, he was very disciplined. He wrote every day. He rewrote everything. When I typed something for him, I mean, it had to be straight edges, you know, I mean, and there couldn't be any mistakes. It was well done. It was re-edited, exactly the right word. That was his idea of writing.
Thompson struggled to make a living, but he was determined to make it as a writer. In the spring of 1965, he started an ambitious project, an inside account of what was then a little-known motorcycle gang, the Hells Angels.
We had the Angels over to the house, and I'm thinking, you know, these are nice people, you know. They're not boring, and they're not insurance agents, you know. They're really not. They're kind of okay people. But I didn't realize that they were, you know, they were also dealing drugs, they were killing people, all kinds of stuff. But I didn't know that.
After a year of research, Thompson wrote Hells Angels, a strange and terrible saga of the outlaw motorcycle gang.
And he had to be careful with these guys, and he was.
When the book was published, the Hells Angels wanted a cut of the money. When Thompson refused, they beat him to within an inch of his life.
He was stomped, and really fortunately, you know, one of the guys, great, big, huge guy, got him out just in the nick of time, you know, because Hunter could easily have been killed.
But the literary critics were kinder. They loved the book. Finally, after years of rejection, Thompson had his first success.
Hunter I'd never heard him. You know, he had been a kind of an unsuccessful journalist for many years, sports writer, pretty much scuffling and getting a lot of rejections and failure. For 10 years, he was not a success. And he came out with this book called Hell's Angels, and it was stunning. You know, it was just a magnificent book, and I'd never read anything like it before.
But at the same time Thompson was beginning his literary career, he was also beginning a long-standing relationship with drugs.
I remember very, very well the first time Hunter took acid. I didn't have a clue about what this would mean, but I have a little boy in a crib, and I was terrified. I was just terrified that Hunter was going to be violent. And then he asked me for the gun. And I said, no. And he said, I want the gun. If you don't give me the gun, I am throwing this boot through that window. And he did. And I was just really scared. Mostly I was scared for Juan. You know, I didn't know what might happen. And I reached up, you know, under 6'3", I'm 5'4½". I reached up and just clawed. I mean, here the guy's on acid, you know, and I took my fingers and I just clawed his face, actually drew blood.
Thompson's next big literary assignment was an article on the 1968 Democratic Convention in Chicago. But demonstrations outside the convention center soon turned ugly. The police used tear gas, dogs, and brute force to break up the crowd. Thompson, the young journalist, was caught in the middle.
He was in the crowds, and he saw many people beaten, some people that he knew, and he just, and he saw the policemen beating these, you know, mostly young people. When he came back, I only saw Hunter cry twice in 19 years. He cried. He was telling me the story of how everyone was getting beaten, and it made a huge difference to him.
Thompson himself said the battles with police were a turning point. Years later, he proclaimed in Rolling Stone that that week in Chicago was worse than the most grotesque acid trip, that it permanently changed his whole chemistry. Suddenly, it became essential to confront those who had slithered their way into power and were causing these things to happen.
He was deeply offended about what was happening in America. As most thinking people are, it's a great dream, America, but the reality is really upsetting frequently to people who can see the options and the possibilities.
You are on our property which you are defacing. If you do not leave, you will be subject to arrest.
Yeah, he was cared a lot about America. He was a real, you know, he was a Southern boy. He was an American.
Thompson was determined to somehow get into politics. When he moved his family north to Aspen, Colorado, he got his opportunity. He was asked to run for sheriff. He jumped at the chance to showcase his very own brand of politics.
It was different from a campaign would be now because there's an already established liberalist view of law enforcement in town. Back then, the sheriff before Hunter, Carol Whitmire, was your classic cowboy redneck sheriff. You know,
Marijuana laws are one of the reasons that has engendered this lack of respect that that cops complain about all over the country.
I think it's a good thing that Hunter Thompson is running, because I think it makes us all aware of the power that's involved in the job.
At least they have some new ideas, which is more than the old people.
Thompson advocated planting grass in the town's streets and punishing people who sold bad drugs. Michael Solheim was his campaign manager.
We would start with stuff like that, but then we would build into the ideas about the control of growth in this town. We were out doing meetings around town, mostly in the evenings at the various lodges and stuff, and inviting all the Aspenites to come and meet Hunter and listen to what his ideas are.
Remarkably, Thompson's campaign seemed to be gaining ground.
I remember one night we were sitting upstairs up there, and that was the day that it first occurred to us that we might win the damn thing. I said, what are we gonna do if we win?
Okay, here's the totals. Whitmire, 204, Hunter, 173.
In the end, Thompson lost by less than 500 votes.
It's very hard to, to have a bald-headed lunatic. I'll do that for the cameras. All right! I've already made up my mind, as a matter of fact. This is my last trip in politics. Or this kind of politics. I assure you I'll be another kind of politics. I'm not sure which way I'll go, but it'll be one or the other. It won't be down this middle anymore.
Once the running for office thing was behind, he preferred to be plotting up an owl farm and, moving the pieces from behind the scenes. But he, when lending his celebrity to a cause would actually do some good, he wouldn't hesitate to do so.
Thompson would never run for office again, but for the rest of his life, he used his writing as a platform to rail against the establishment. It's the early hours of the morning. Hunter Thompson is alone. He's in constant pain. He has 14 hours before he will choose to end his life.
Well, physically, he was in crummy shape. He'd had a surgery or two, and, the bad broken leg and all that stuff takes a toll on anyone that age. So, yeah, he was in crummy shape.
At 3 a.m., Thompson calls Ben Fee and Juan.
Hey, Benny.
He wants company.
What are you guys doing? Tonight he's young.
And it occasioned is taking painkillers, which were not any better for him than they are for anybody else. And, lots of painkillers make you depressed, and they kind of make your situation seem more and more trapped.
Thanks. Cheers. Cheers.
And Juan and I went over and sat with Hunter for a long time, for several more hours. He had a moment where he was scared that he was going to have his freedom stripped, his ability to live the way he enjoyed to live, with guns open on the counter. So we read his old works and tried to keep it light and upbeat, get his mind off of it.
You could strike sparks anywhere. There was a fantastic inevitable victory.
It was about 7 in the morning when Hunter went to bed.
That was good.
And I asked Juan if he ever feared for his father's life. He didn't seem to believe that it was right around the corner. Juan knew his father and knew how it would end, but I don't think Juan saw it coming up like it did.
"35 years earlier, Hunter S. Thompson changed the face of journalism. He returned to the city of his birth, Louisville, to cover the Kentucky Derby for Scanlon's magazine. As the deadline for the article approached, the magazine became anxious to get their copy.
And they said, you have to send us something. He said, I don't have anything. All I have is garbage. And they said, well, you have to send it. I can't. It's not lucid. They said, send it to us. He sent it to them, and they said, this is great.
Even though Thompson wasn't convinced by his new style, others saw it as a breakthrough.
My view is that it actually was quite a polished piece. It was just rather of a radical style. And it was consistent with a kind of journalism that was getting more and more radical, starting with Norman Mailer on the steps of the Pentagon and Armies of the Night, and Tom Wolfe, the acid Kool-Aid test, and this kind of personal journalism where you put yourself in the story and you write in the voice, the narrative voice that you recognize. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll narrative voice. It was like the way people talk.
Thompson's new style was a break from his previous work. It was considered so unique it was given a name: Gonzo journalism. Whether accidental or planned, Thompson's Gonzo style became more concrete in 1971, when he took a long, drug-frenzied journey from California to Las Vegas with attorney Oscar Acosta. They're somewhere in the deserts outside Barstow, California, when the cocktail of drugs explodes in his brain. Suddenly, even the simple act of driving becomes fraught with frightening visions. The audio hallucinates a terrible roar, while all around what looks like huge bats are swooping and screeching. Thompson screams, "Holy Jesus, what are these goddamn animals?" What Thompson had put to paper was wild, manic, and like nothing anyone else was writing. He's still ogling and groping the American dream, that pale, exhausted vision of the big winner stumbling like a drunk out of an impassive and stale Vegas casino. The articles he wrote were turned into a novel, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Hunter Thompson was just 34 years old, and already he'd created a classic.
He could cut to the sort of essence of the truth of what was going on by fictional techniques such as metaphor or imagination or fantasy. He was brilliant, absolutely.
But more than that, he'd created a fictional Hunter S. Thompson, the wild, drug-taking, bourbon-swilling Gonzo journalist at the center of the book. As Thompson grew older, he would find it increasingly difficult to play that character. After a short sleep, Hunter S. Thompson rolls out of bed. In 4 hours, he'll take his own life. His wife Anita is doing her best to forget the fight of the night before. She gets ready to drive into town for a yoga class.
Good morning. It's Mr. Booby. Good morning, Mr. Booby.
Okay, well, you have a nice day, too.
The day begins like Thompson's days have for much of the last 50 years, with liberal amounts of alcohol.
Diggity dog. Protein. We're good.
It's very, very difficult to separate the writer from the bourbon drinker, and it never ever stopped, and it went on to his dying day. It was an essential part of him.
He was what I would call a professional drinker, and of course a famous drug user in a what I would call an intelligent way. That he wasn't a crash and burn sort of a guy.
Look, last night, is that it? I'm sorry.
At breakfast, Thompson tries to apologize to his wife Anita for pointing the gun at her the night before.
What? You know,
It was very difficult to live with Hunter. It was exciting. It was, at times, really loving and romantic. But I would say most of the time, it was very hard. Mostly because Hunter was so angry.
This was an impulsive person, attract and command attention, was a subject of adulation. He was novel. He was original. But with age, that impulsiveness ceases to be so much of an advantage. And when you no longer have the emotional high that comes from that kind of attention, how do you replace that?
I've been out of control for 50 years. I mean, what's new?
I gotta get out of here. I'm going to the gym.
As his wife leaves, she has no idea that this will be the last time she will see him alive. "33 years earlier, after the great success of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Rolling Stone magazine sent their new star on the road again. The assignment was to cover the 1972 U.S. presidential campaign.
That's what this is all about. Thanks.
There was a feeling that this was an election that could defeat Nixon, that something exciting might happen. There wasn't such a clear distinction between the music and the politics. The music was going to set us free. That was our motto.
Thompson was supposed to bring the rock and roll mentality to the campaign.
Richard Nixon represents the dark side of the American dream. Richard Nixon stands to me for everything that I not only have contempt for, but dislike and think should be stomped out. Greed, treachery, stupidity, cupidity. Nixon represents everything that's wrong with this country. I mean, down the line. He can't even walk. You know, he walks around with this kind of, how are you? I'm Richard Nixon.
Tim Ferriss was an editor with Rolling Stone.
A button he had printed up once said, you know, I'm not like the others. He wasn't like the rest of the press corps. Even conservative American political figures like Pat Buchanan, you know, would say that Hunter was writing the funniest stuff about politics they'd ever read. It was really astonishing material.
Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 72 was a collection of stories Thompson wrote about the race. It was supposed to be released immediately after the election, but Alan Rinsler, Thompson's editor, was getting increasingly worried about the deadline.
He and I had exchanged really hostile letters prior to this meeting, because I'm an intrusive kind of do what's needed to be done kind of hands-on editor. I didn't want to just wait for him. I knew he was notoriously late with everything. And what I realized ultimately was that he was not going to write this book. He was not going to finish it on time. I would have to actually sit with him the entire time. Food was brought in constantly. Well, he didn't eat much because he was taking so much speed. And cocaine. It was a non-stop, you know, 72 hours at a stretch, collapse, 72 more at a stretch, collapse kind of experience. And we had tape machines in those days. People would come pick up the tapes, rush away to the office, and work all night transcribing the tapes, or all day, and bring back the pages. And that was the kind of way you had to work to get it done with Hunter.
Not only was Rinsler dealing with a writer who found it hard to write, he was also dealing with an author who was finding it increasingly difficult to find his groove.
He tried to tune up his mind through drugs and alcohol to the point where he was having like grandiose visions and flights of tremendous creative imagination. I mean, it's true. And he'd try to capture that. But then there'd be too much of it, and then he'd start to turn to jelly, and he couldn't think straight at all.
Finally, after a huge consumption of narcotics and a great deal of help from his editor, the book was written. Once again, it was a success, but from here on, the writing got harder.
I've been with a lot of writers, and it's hard for everybody, but for Hunter, it got harder and harder. It was a hard act. He was himself a hard act to follow.
The drink and drugs that had once inspired Thompson became a permanent fixture, and bit by bit began to rot his brain.
Absolutely, you can't do that forever. He was a big, strong guy, and he had a high tolerance. But after 40, 50 years of steady, daily, never being sober, I think it gets to you. A lot of people I know from that era either died or disintegrated or straightened out.
After more than 30 years of fighting against the political tide of the United States, Thompson is preparing to withdraw from the race once and for all. It's February 20th, 2005. Hunter S. Thompson has gathered his family for one last weekend at his ranch in Aspen, Colorado. On the last morning of his life, his knee hurts, his hips hurt, his back is sore. In 2 hours, he will shoot himself.
Well, Hunter was extremely free. He insisted on his freedom, and he exercised his freedom to a degree that's unknown to most mortals on a day-by-day basis. And I'm not just talking about freedom of speech, but freedom of action. And when that freedom began to be limited by the fact that he couldn't walk right, that he was in physical pain from a bad back and back surgery, bad knee and stuff, bad broken leg, I think the thing that most troubled him about it was the prospect of that he was looking at a permanent narrowing of of his freedom.
He'd been, blessed with an athlete's body all his life, and all of a sudden it all kind of starts to fold up at once over a short period of time. Is going to be a horrible blow to anyone. So his physical problems were a big part of his life at that point.
He types a cryptic word on his typewriter. It's the last thing he will ever write. Its meaning remains a riddle. It's 3:30, February 20th, 2005. Thompson calls his neighbor, Ed Bastian.
Hey, Eddie, get over here. Over here, right? There's gonna be some shooting.
Hunter was someone who never expected to be 30 years old, much less 40 or 50. He lived his life knowing that he was living dangerously and enjoying himself on a day-by-day basis. He always emphasized that it was fine with him if he didn't live a long life. And as he got older, he often said that he wasn't afraid to commit suicide, that this was a kind of an exit door that he regarded as being perfectly defensible.
Hunter S. Thompson has just 2 hours left to live. "26 years earlier, Thompson published The Great Shark Hunt. The book is a collection of his best writing stretching back to the early 60s. Thompson was only 41 years old, but already he was writing a retrospective. He compares it to etching words onto his own tombstone. There seems nothing left. He said all there is to say. Beyond, he can foresee nothing but a quick exit straight down, right off his 28th floor hotel terrace. No one could follow up his act, let alone Hunter S. Thompson.
Well, as you read his chronology throughout his career, one of the things that made him great was he took risks. He went into areas that were not necessarily safe for journalists, from his first work in Hell's Angels to the Chicago convention, and that riskiness paid off with his creativity, but also with that risk went a self-destructive strength.
Thompson continued to write articles for Rolling Stone, but nothing he did could win the same critical acclaim of his earlier works.
Once you'd written Hell's Angels and Fear and Loathing, you got to keep raising the bar. But Hunter's particular psyche and personality, he was, insecure, and he was, he was very anxious all the time.
So the money, the fame, the hallucinogenics, those are all different ingredients. And so Hunter began to morph. He began to change a bit. I had lived to help him be this great writer. Well, this great writer wasn't writing, and he wasn't writing great things. And what am I doing?
Sondi, Thompson's wife for over 15 years, had had enough of the Hunter Thompson circus and left.
I had no sense of myself. I didn't think I could do anything. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't this enough. I wasn't good enough. So when I left, I still loved Hunter, but there was no way that I could live this life anymore.
Thompson had become known as much for his excessive behavior as for his writing. Hunter S. Thompson, the writer, became more and more Hunter S. Thompson, the character.
And, when there'd be an event with a lot of people at our farm, Hunter would put on his sunglasses and the cigarette holder and the visor, and he'd become that public persona, and those of us who were closest to him would kind of back off and let the fans move in.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hunter S. Thompson!
Thompson began to cash in on his notoriety, charging large fees to appear in front of crowds of adoring students.
I saw him speak at Cal once. And he got up on the stage, he was so drunk, he just fell over and passed out. And people had paid a lot of money, and he was paid something like 25 grand to do that. He was on the stage for like 6 minutes. And that was his public persona for many of his public appearances.
I remember once Hunter was cited and I think had to pay a fine for setting off a fire extinguisher on stage at some talk he was giving somewhere. And he told me rather sheepishly that, I said, well, you know, why'd you do that? And didn't you know that it was, you know, there are statutes against it now? And he said, well, I thought it was expected of me.
But Thompson's wild antics weren't just for his public appearances.
I'm gonna blow the hell out of him. That wouldn't be good. Okay.
One of his favorite things was to get a gallon jar and fill it with gasoline.
I'm gonna move your gloves up, man. They're gonna goddamn get wet. You know that.
And there were these little exploding targets that he'd attach them to a gallon of gasoline. The first time, he says, Michael, go into the living room and get a fire extinguisher. I go to get the fire extinguisher. And I'm standing about 20 feet away. He says, no, stand right here behind me. I said, Hunter, if I stand here and you catch fire, I'm gonna catch fire. So I'll just stand over there. He gave me a really disgusted look.
Fire was big, breaking glass. Yeah, blowing things up. Yeah, that's violence. That's chaos.
The first time I met him, he actually handed me, I'll never forget this, a fistful of lit Roman candles. They were lit. He said, here, wrestler, hold this. You know, and it was like, if you're gonna play with me, you gotta be fearless. And so I took them, and then they went off and just shot into the air.
Yeah, Hunter loved loud noises and explosions and unexpected things.
There's a theory about drug abuse and alcohol abuse that, in a sense, when you start using, you stop growing internally. And you don't mature, you don't develop as an adult. You're stuck in 16, 17, 18. And in many ways, I believe that's the key to Hunter's personality. He was a big kid.
His public appearances and outrageous behavior did nothing to tarnish his reputation. In the late 90s, his most famous book, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, became a Hollywood movie starring Johnny Depp. And when John Kerry ran for president in 2004, he could still invoke Thompson's name.
I'll give you 4 words to put you at ease. Vice President Hunter Thompson.
But even though Kerry could use Thompson's name to get a laugh, Thompson hadn't been taken seriously as either a political commentator or a writer in years.
Later on, as politics moved in its course and the country changed, to keep on with that kind of political commentary would have required learning quite a lot about how the landscape was changing, and Hunter wasn't really interested in doing that.
I don't think the books were very good, the last bunch of books. He got into kind of an ESPN sports writing thing that was kind of hack work. He just couldn't keep it up. And I think that starting in 1982 or 3, for the last 20 years of his life, his work was just to make a living and to provide a new product for publishers who were willing to pay him large advances, because anything that with his name on it would sell. But the quality of his work, I think, really after 1982, just became repetitious and flat.
As the years dragged on, Thompson's writing was becoming increasingly irrelevant. As old age set in, he would rely on his favorite gun, a .45 Smith & Wesson, to make his final statement to the world. It's late afternoon. Hunter S. Thompson has less than half an hour left to live. His wife Anita calls from a local fitness club. Once again, Thompson apologizes for his behavior the night before. This is the last conversation Hunter Thompson will ever have.
Hunter was speaking with Anita on the phone, and they were reconciling, and he was speaking with her and telling her that everything was going to be okay.
Elsewhere in the house, Thompson's son Juan watches over his own son, 6-year-old Will.
Stop it.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm at the gym. I'm finishing up.
This is a sea of Gonzo thongs, I hope?
Yes.
Well, listen, babe, I'm sorry about last night. Okay, I'm sorry, but I really love you. Come on home, will you?
Okay, I love you too. Hunter? Hunter? Hunter?
Come on. What's wrong? What's wrong?
No. Juan blew past me as I was on my way over, white as a ghost. I had no idea, but I could tell that something wasn't right.
I was with Bob Broaddus, our sheriff, and Bob got a call from one of his deputies saying that there'd been a gunshot out at Hunter's. And we all looked at each other and just knew that was it. That was it.
Jennifer and Will were horribly shaken. It was so surreal and shocking. I stepped closer, and Juan interrupted me, and he grabbed me and said, Don't come closer, please.
Go.
My son to this day and my daughter-in-law both feel that they are glad that they were there to take care of things, and also to see him and feel his body, and so that it was very, very real.
Hunter S. Thompson died at 5:45 p.m., February 20th, 2005. He was 67 years old.
He was born a genius, and he was born with that charisma. And he was also born with that tortured soul. And where that comes from, I don't know.
John F. Kennedy Jr. was an American prince, the son of a beloved president and a beautiful trend-setting aristocrat.
The enormity of the experience that this kid had to go through, it's amazing.
My father stood before you.
He carried the weight of public expectation on his shoulders.
He knew that he was being groomed. He knew that everyone had a plan.
Hounded by paparazzi and constant gossip column headlines, John takes refuge in his passion for flying.
John, are we lost?
No, we're fine,
John!
I miss the little boy I knew. I miss him so much, you know.
Why did he decide to fly that evening, risking his own life and the lives of his loved ones? New York City, July 15th, 1999. John Kennedy Jr. begins the last 24 hours of his life. He is more than a celebrity. He's American royalty, a cultural icon. It's early evening, and John is meeting his wife Carolyn and her sister Lauren at the Stanhope Hotel bar in New York City. He's nursing a broken ankle sustained when he crash-landed his ultralight aircraft 6 weeks ago. John, Carolyn and Lauren had planned to fly to the wedding of John's cousin, Rory Kennedy, but there's a problem. John's marriage is in trouble, and Carolyn doesn't want to go. John moved out of the couple's Tribeca loft to a room here at the Stanhope Hotel just 2 days ago.
John had had a fight with Carolyn, and she was such a high-maintenance person that you didn't make up with her in 5 minutes. It would take hours, or maybe even days, to make up with her from one of their big fights. And so he stayed at a hotel. He went off and stayed at a hotel. Again, it didn't mean they were separating. It just meant the intensity of their argument and how the seriousness of the discussions they would have to have.
They both had a very strong temper, not temper, but character. You know, Caroline had a very, very strong character.
Carolyn has been overwhelmed by the public attention that follows John everywhere he goes.
She didn't know who she was. She got lost a little bit, and that was a big problem.
Well, John had no idea when he married Carolyn that she would be unable to deal with the media pressure. After all, she was in public relations beforehand. She seemed to love to be in the limelight. She seemed to be the perfect wife for John. But immediately after their honeymoon, they come back to their flat in Soho, and she can't deal with it. There are the photographers waiting there. She simply can't deal with it, and she becomes a recluse. She just stays in that apartment for days on end.
I won't take no for an answer.
In an effort to broker a compromise, Carolyn's sister, Lauren Bissett, has pressured the couple to meet for drinks.
It'll be a great idea. We'll all fly up together and we'll have fun.
She encourages them to put aside their differences, at least for the weekend, and go as planned to John's cousin's wedding.
Why don't you just put the last few weeks behind you? I just want this to stop. What is the matter with you two? Excuse me.
John cherishes Kennedy family gatherings.
She's so stubborn, my little sister.
It's a chance for him to shed the public persona and relax with people who've shared triumphs and tragedies with him all his life.
The Kennedys have had so much tragedy. They're used to circling the wagons. They're used to pulling together, grieving together, and resolving together. I've never seen a family like it. They're always there for one another.
I want to try.
Carolyn finally agrees. They will all fly together tomorrow afternoon.
Control freak. But I love you for it.
John, Carolyn, and Lauren have just 23 hours to live.
John, how do you feel about a special prosecution?
John F. Kennedy Jr. lived his entire life in the public eye. He was America's most eligible bachelor and, according to People magazine, the sexiest man alive. He dated film stars and married the socialite Carolyn Bessette. He was on tabloid front pages and a regular in celebrity gossip columns.
He wasn't thrown into a fire or a glare of media lights. He grew up there. I mean, he was the best at it. But it had this innocence about it. And that is probably the greatest lesson I learned from my friend was, don't be cynical. And to hear it from him was a beautiful thing.
I'm not a political leader.
but I can speak for those of my age.
John lived with endless speculation about whether he had the ability to follow in the footsteps of a father he never knew. "38 years earlier, John Kennedy Jr. made history as the first child born to a US president-elect. John and Jackie Kennedy took Washington by storm, ushering in a whole new era.
The whole thing just changed. The wines, the food, the way people dressed, the way people felt about coming to the White House. The people who were honored there, the Nobel Prize winners, the intellects, the great museum directors, the university presidents. The guest lists were quality, 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 instead of politics, politics, politics.
The interest in it was unprecedented in American history. The magazines, the covers of the magazines, television, newspapers, radio, just nothing but the Kennedys.
John and his sister Caroline's enchanted childhood was constantly documented by an adoring media.
Kennedy's being the first television administration, as it were really a novelty in American history, and young, vibrant, energetic, charismatic couple with the two golden children. I mean, the first two kids to grow up in the White House since, I think, the days of Grover Cleveland.
Little John just caught everybody's hearts. He was so handsome and so natural and responsive.
But soon this idyllic time would be cut short by tragedy. John Kennedy Jr. has less than 22 hours to live. His marriage is in trouble and he's living alone in a New York hotel. Earlier this evening, John and his wife Carolyn were reconciled thanks to her sister Lauren. Now he's turned his attention to problems with work. 4 years ago, John launched a political magazine called George, but now sales have slowed and the magazine is floundering. John is up late, struggling to create a business plan to save the venture.
He had a magazine that was in trouble. It might fold if he didn't get an infusion of cash.
George was an important stepping stone for John Jr. It was something that he endeavored to do prior to entering the field of politics, which I think he recognized as an inevitable part of his life.
John will meet his publisher in the morning. His attempt to be regarded as a serious player in publishing will be tested.
Dealing with the bare-bone business of George was difficult for him. He did not enjoy it. He had to put on a suit and go into the boardroom and get berated.
John is under maximum stress, just when his life will depend on clear thinking. It's been a long day. He needs to get some sleep. Tomorrow morning's meeting could determine John Jr.'s fledgling political career. "36 years earlier, President John Kennedy and his spirited 2-year-old son had developed a unique bond.
President Kennedy was so thrilled to have a son, but he was like every father. Every father is thrilled to have a son. And here was this beautiful boy. And so he loved it when little John came to his office and examined everything and played with everything.
But on November 22nd, 1963, John Kennedy Jr.'s charmed childhood ended with a gunshot. His father was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. The president was buried on John's 3rd birthday.
He said often that he remembered nothing of his father, not even that famous scene where he's saluting the horse-drawn carriage that's carrying his father's body.
This image would haunt John for the rest of his life.
He was, in a way, in search of his father his entire life.
John Kennedy Jr. will spend much of his life trying to live up to the expectations of a man he can barely remember.
The assassination changed everything. The White House suddenly closed up like a clamshell. Usually the place was full of happy chatter and the clicking of heels on those marble hallways. But all of a sudden, it was just deathly silence. It was a grief-stricken house.
It was a watershed. America had this endless optimism and promise that one sees dissipating from that day.
Just 2 weeks later, John left the White House, where he'd spent the first 3 years of his life.
Jackie and her 2 children moved into a house in Georgetown, an elegant house. But it was surrounded by paparazzi and by journalists and by tourists.
What was so terrible about it was that they couldn't go anywhere or do anything without being besieged by the press, the media. They had sightseeing buses that would stop in front of the house. Carolyn Kennedy and her brother John would leave the house, and people would pounce on them and tear at them and grab their clothes.
It was impossible for her to have the real life she wanted to have for her family.
In less than a year, Jackie fled with her children to New York City. Desperate for a father figure for her young son, Jackie turned to Bobby Kennedy. Robert Kennedy's courage and determination to follow in his brother's footsteps and run for the presidency made a huge impression on John Jr.
Joseph Kennedy, the Kennedy patriarch, really had trained his sons that one must pick up the banner for the next. Now it was Bobby's turn to take up that banner and to get to the White House himself.
My thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago, and let's win there.
But on June 6, 1968, the unimaginable happened. Just 5 years after the death of his father, John Jr.'s uncle, Robert Kennedy, was shot and killed as he campaigned for the leadership of the Democratic Party. Now, 7-year-old John Jr. was fatherless again. As an adult, John Kennedy Jr. was reluctant to speak about the tragedy he experienced as a child. But the media speculated endlessly and dubbed it the Curse of the Kennedys.
The title I selected for this book, The Kennedys, Dynasty and Disaster, made a lot of sense. There seems to be some kind of a curse hanging over the Kennedys.
On John's last day, the curse would strike again. John Kennedy Jr. has 14 hours to live. Last night, he reconciled with his estranged wife, Carolyn, who agreed to join him at a family wedding at Martha's Vineyard. John plans to take Carolyn and her sister Lauren in his light aircraft. They plan to leave at 5:30 this afternoon. But John Jr. has a busy day ahead. He's already tired, having worked long into the night preparing a new business plan to save George, his political magazine, from financial disaster. This morning, John will present his new plan to the bosses at Hachette Philipacci Publishing. John's hopes for his future depend on the outcome of this meeting.
Gentlemen, always ready for good news, sir. Have a seat.
Klieger told him, it's over, it's done, we're not gonna pick you up. After your 5-year contract is done, we've done wonderfully with the magazine, we feel you've been a great success, but it's time to move on.
John knows Hachette's CEO, Jack Klieger, is tough, but he's determined to turn the situation around.
The business plan that he had presented was a strategic plan, but it didn't have, in my opinion, enough specific tactical executions that I could then go and present that to my bosses and feel comfortable with that presentation. John was very interested in expanding the George brand, and I agreed that it was an important element of what we were doing, or what we could do. John obviously was a magnet to be on television being interviewed, but he didn't really want it to be John Kennedy as the driving force. He wanted George to be there, so he wanted to get more of his editors and more of the content onto both the television and the internet.
Hachette wants John to trade on the Kennedy name, but John has other ideas, and that's frustrated the publisher's executives.
I would like your input. He got very, very specific, and his eyes got very straight when he said he didn't want his name taken advantage of by the company.
This is not a comfortable experience for John, but no one would ever know. He's a man who's learned too well to hide behind his public persona. With his charm offensive, the meeting goes better than expected.
Now, it's a framework in which we can...
So we went through a number of specifics that I wanted him to get into, which he was prepared to do and was willing to do. But he was upbeat. He thought he could have those specifics ready for me by the end of that day, which I said, that's fine.
We're on the right track, John.
John manages to buy himself some time. Time he doesn't have.
Delighted. Have a great day.
By the age of 8, John Kennedy Jr. had lost both his father and his uncle to violent assassinations.
At that point, Jackie said, my God, if they're killing Kennedys, then my kids are next. And this is what led to the marriage with Aristotle Onassis.
Jackie's courtship with Onassis was pounced on by the media and made international headlines.
Aristotle Onassis was Greek, and he was the richest man on the planet Earth.
Jackie married Onassis in part because she liked money, and the Kennedys hadn't really left her that much money.
Less than 5 months after the death of Robert Kennedy, John's mother marries self-made shipping magnate Aristotle Onassis. But the American public was outraged. Jackie had betrayed their trust by apparently casting aside the sacred memory of their fallen hero.
Americans loved Jackie, but they loved her not as a woman with her own life. They loved her as the eternal widow.
With her children protected by the Onassis' private security force, John's life regained stability. Aristotle Onassis lavished time, love, and money on John Jr.
I think he liked Ari Onassis a lot. I think Ari liked him a lot, and I think he found Ari to be a very interesting, avuncular sort of figure.
But this oasis of calm was not destined to last. Within 3 years, the marriage between Aristotle Onassis, the Greek self-made billionaire, and Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy, the Virginia blue blood, began to fall apart.
I think that the fact that they were so oil and water-ish, night and day-ish, have you call it what you will. I mean, his ideal of fun was to sit around in a nightclub till 3 in the morning, breaking glasses, dancing the Greek dances, singing the Greek songs, whereas Jackie liked to curl up with a good book at 9 p.m.
Then, tragedy once again reshapes John Jr.'s life. Aristotle Onassis loses his only son, Alexander, in a plane crash.
For the Greek, as the Kennedys used to refer to Aristotle Onassis, for the Greek to lose his one and only son was for Aristotle Onassis an absolutely tragic, traumatic, life-ending event.
Unable to cope with his loss, Ari severed all ties with young John. For the 3rd time in less than 10 years, John Jr. lost a father figure. Just after midday, John is busy in his Manhattan office. The meeting with his publisher is forgotten as John hits the ground running. As the editor-in-chief of the magazine, he's got to push the next issue out the door.
He had deadlines. He had to do so many things, and he was responsible. And it became, I think it became a little stressful. He explained to me once that when the magazine has to go out, it has to go out. And sometimes you have to be there all night.
Locked into a frenetic pace, John is about to make a series of minor mistakes that will mean the difference between life and death.
Hello.
At 1 p.m., he gets a call from Essex Airport and arranges for his Piper Saratoga to be fueled and ready for 5:30 p.m.
This afternoon's a turn.
But as the afternoon unfolds, his departure plan will be delayed.
Need that 10 minutes ago. Good ending.
1:05 p.m., A pilot he regularly flies with calls to ask if he needs a co-pilot. John, inexplicably, refuses the offer.
The strangest, most inexplicable thing that happened that last day was that John didn't take a co-pilot with him. He was such a careful pilot that out of the 200 or so hours he had flown, he had an inordinate number with a co-pilot. I mean, most pilots with 200 hours would not have had 70 or 80% of those hours with a pilot beside him. But he knew he wasn't a great pilot. Why John didn't take the pilot with him is one of those things we're just never going to know.
4:30 p.m. The drive to Essex Airport takes about an hour. If he's going to make his 5:30 departure and fly to Martha's Vineyard in daylight, he should leave now. But John takes time to email his friend John Barlow to offer condolences on the death of his mother. 4:30 p.m. Running late, John calls Jack Klieger and postpones their meeting until the following week.
Hi, Jack. Hi. And he did call me at around 4:30 or so to say that he'd gotten really backed up. They were closing an issue, and he also had some other things he had to take care of, and he had to leave for the airport that night, so he asked if he could get it to me the following week. And I said, that's fine, as long as you can see that it gets sent to me where I was just going to be on vacation not far away. So we agreed that I'd get it the following week, and that was the last conversation we had.
Yeah, I know.
5 p.m. John calls his friend Billy Noonan and says he will not be able to make his anniversary celebration. They plan to meet later that weekend, but John will never see his friend again. 6:32 p.m. John logs on to the weather service. He reads that the conditions are hazy, visibility 5 miles. But John fails to take into consideration that the measuring device only sees what is directly above.
That machine is only looking straight up in the sky. So in other words, if you have a clear sky right over the machine will report clear sky. But if you have 500 feet away, a layer of fog surrounding the machine still will report a clear sky unless that fog is right over the machine.
Hello?
John hasn't flown alone in his Piper Saratoga since he broke his ankle 6 weeks ago. But he's too busy putting out fires at George magazine to calmly evaluate his plan to fly. 6:40 p.m. John leaves the office more than 2 hours later than intended. He's neglected to calculate the additional time he will lose driving in Friday rush hour traffic.
Great long weekend.
When you learn to fly, you are taught to follow certain procedures. Checking the weather, doing a pre-flight inspection, checking yourself, making sure that you're feeling up to it. If you skip one of them, it opens the door for error.
John has made a number of errors in judgment this afternoon. In less than 3 hours, he'll be dead. "22 years earlier, John celebrated his 16th birthday at the Kennedy compound. Despite the numerous tragedies he'd faced, friends say he embraced life with energy and enthusiasm.
Some strange appreciation of life, this desire to go out and do things, to see things, like a cat. He was just curious. He wanted to see everything and do everything.
But John was at best an average student. Teachers said he had difficulty concentrating in class.
He had a problem with ADD, attention deficit disorder. Started taking medication for that when he was a teenager, and Jackie sent him to a therapist in New York for that reason.
His mother wanted John to toughen up and experience life away from the Kennedy compound. She sent him to Guatemala as a Peace Corps volunteer, and the following summer on an outward-bound survival course.
Jackie was worried that her son wasn't serious. She was worried he was going to get in trouble, get off the right path. He was just going to be a playboy.
It was during this period that John discovered a new passion: acting.
He loved it. He loved it. His first was Cyrano of Bergerac. He was great on Cyrano. John was a charmer. He could charm a snake. He was on stage. He was just on his element. He loved it.
For John, acting was a chance to do his own thing and to escape for a moment the Kennedy name.
He was, in fact, very charming, playing roles of down and outers, alcoholics. This was what he was best at, not playing somebody from his own background. It gave him the freedom to be someone other than himself.
Deliberately avoiding Princeton and Harvard, where his father studied, John enrolled as a freshman at the smaller and more liberal Brown University. There, he was constantly monitored.
Jackie watched over John very closely, often in ways he didn't even know. I mean, she got his grades, she'd call his professors. She was omnipresent.
Jackie made sure John knew he must fulfill his duties as a Kennedy. He was often drafted in to introduce his Uncle Teddy at political functions.
Ladies and gentlemen, my Uncle Ted Kennedy.
And when he wanted to apply to drama school as a graduate student, Jackie insisted he study law.
It was Jackie who ultimately put her foot down regarding his acting career and who said, look, you know, you're going to go to law school and you're going to study law and you're going to work.
Succumbing to intense pressure, John suppressed his passion for acting and reluctantly entered New York University Law School. It was the first step towards accepting his Kennedy inheritance. John is already more than 2 hours late for his scheduled flight. It's almost 7 p.m. when he picks up Lauren, his wife's sister. John originally planned to fly out of Essex County Airport for Martha's Vineyard at 5:30. But driving in Friday rush hour traffic, it will take him over an hour to get there, and he'll be forced to make the last crucial minutes of his flight in darkness. With no break in the traffic, John and Lauren are still at least 45 minutes from the airport. He could have called to reschedule the flight, but he did not. John's wife, Carolyn, has spent the afternoon shopping for a dress to wear to the family wedding. She decided to travel alone to Essex Airport. Now she too is stuck in traffic. She does not confer with John and her sister about the delay. Carolyn and John have always had a tempestuous relationship. When they met, she was well connected in the fashion industry. He was America's most eligible bachelor. They met when Carolyn was a shopping consultant for Calvin Klein. John fell madly in love.
They caught each other's eye, and that spark didn't go away. That spark turned into a big flame, in many ways.
They were America's golden couple, but by their last day, cracks have begun to appear. John has been accused of being insensitive. Some say Carolyn is controlling, a skilled manipulator.
My wife called her a witch, but a good witch. And that she had this power about her, a mystery and an intelligence, I think, more than anything. She didn't necessarily not let you know what she was thinking, but you knew that she understood you. She looked you in the eye, and you knew that she touched your soul a little bit, and you felt that, and you appreciated that in her. And John saw that right away with her. As I said, when I first saw her, I looked at the ground and tried to get out of the room, frankly. And they didn't even know each other that well yet. He was watching me react to her, and I think, and a lot of people react that way to her, and that was attractive to him.
They were two powerful personalities who couldn't seem to get along, even though they believed they were meant for each other.
John and Carolyn's relationship was really based on the idea that they were soulmates, that they'd found the counterpoint of each other. They were talking about kids and talking about him becoming a senator, and she'd smoothed out.
John and Carolyn make slow progress towards the airport.
What's the plan?
Whatever their hopes, their future together will be cut tragically short.
Slow news day, I guess, huh?
John, a lot of people waiting for you here.
Sure.
How do you feel about this? Is it true that you passed the bar?
Apparently it's true. I got the official word not long ago, so it's true.
What do you mean not long ago?
John began his career in law as an assistant district attorney in New York City.
Absolutely.
What kind of cases are you looking forward to?
Well, whatever they give me. John, with all this attention, answer the pressure, take it.
Jackie was proud of her son, but her plans for John's future would soon be derailed.
He said, I'm no Clarence Darrow. What do you want out of my life? He didn't enjoy being a lawyer. That kind of lifestyle didn't suit him.
I mean, he wasn't a great DA. I mean, a lot of the bad guys were so delighted to meet John that they confessed. And he wasn't a prosecutor, okay? He was too nice to be a prosecutor.
John became restless and dreamed of starting a political magazine. But the greatest obstacle to achieving this new goal would again be tragedy. When John was 33 years old, Jackie Kennedy was diagnosed with cancer. Putting his dreams aside, John devoted himself to the care of his mother.
We always thought, oh, she's going to be okay, you know, because she told me, you know, I'm going to be okay, don't now get nervous about it.
But despite her courage and John's constant care, 5 months later, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis was dead.
What he suffered the most is after Madam died. It was a big, big void on his life.
For John, it was extraordinarily sad, but it was the evocation, the birth of a man. I mean, the day after she died, there he was in front of her building on 1040 Fifth Avenue in a blue suit, talking to the press.
My mother passed on. She was surrounded by her friends and her family.
Her death was horrible. It was the saddest I've ever seen. But he came out of it with her spirit firmly behind him.
It's a reading from the second letter of St. Paul to the Thessalonians. But I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren.
Jackie was gone, and although devastated by the loss, John Kennedy Jr. was now finally free to chart his own destiny.
She told him on her deathbed, go use your name. You earned it.
Delayed at the office and then by rush hour traffic, John Kennedy Jr. arrives at Essex Airport almost 3 hours behind schedule. He has less than 2 hours to live. John drops Lauren off at the terminal to wait for Carolyn while he drives to a nearby convenience store. He is relaxed as he goes about his normal routine, even though the sun is setting and it will soon be dark. Also, unknown to him, bad weather is moving in.
I actually was planning on making that same trip from Caldwell to Martha's Vineyard about three hours prior to John F. Kennedy Jr.'s departure. But I chose to cancel due to the reduced visibility and the weather.
Another pilot who has just landed and is aware of the reduced visibility tries to warn John. If this pilot had found John, it is possible that he might have changed his mind about flying. But John is now at the convenience store, calmly signing autographs for excited well-wishers.
He had decided before making the trip that he was going to do it by himself. John felt, well, look, I'm out of this contraption in my ankle. My ankle feels good. I'm taking pain pills, but nevertheless, I'm ready to go.
For John, the physical limitation was a challenge. That was the Kennedy way.
This is a family that's out there that lives on the edge. They feel somehow that the only way that they can enjoy life is by living it in the most extreme sense. And if you do that enough, I mean, the odds are bound to take hold.
He did not take excessive risks in the sense that I saw some of his other family members doing. But when it came to flying, he was almost anal. I went up with my family the week before, and I would have gone up the week after. When he landed, it was beautiful.
You know, a lot of people said to me, why didn't you warn him? It would have been completely inappropriate for me to warn him or to give him advice, because I don't know his proficiency, I don't know, you know, what his skill level is, and I don't know if there's a pilot or an instructor on the airplane with him.
It's now 8:25 p.m. John had originally planned to make this trip in daylight. Leaving now means that soon he will be flying in the dark over the Atlantic Ocean.
Is
that John's plane over there?
Yes, that's John's plane.
Is that his wife?
Yes, that's his wife.
We should go over. Let's go. Thank you.
Tragically, one of Jackie Kennedy's last wishes would have saved her son's life had he kept his word.
She exacted from John a promise that he wouldn't pursue flying lessons after her death, but after her death he did in fact resume them.
John couldn't resist his passion for flying. He began with ultralight planes, then bought a Cessna and quickly got his pilot's license.
I know that he seemed very happy in an airplane when I was with him. It gave him a lot of joy, I know that.
3 months before he died, John purchased a Piper Saratoga, a much faster, more powerful aircraft. Flying was his escape route from all the public attention.
John had an illusion that ordinary people had a kind of freedom he didn't have. He didn't see that you and I are imprisoned in our way just as he was. And he saw it in flying as a way to have that absolute freedom, go above the clouds, and he was his own person.
The year after his mother's death, John fulfilled an ambition she would have been proud of. He launched his political magazine, George,
Ladies and gentlemen, meet George.
to huge critical acclaim.
The beginning of George was like an eagle taking off for him, that he happened to be riding. He loved it, the creative process, the fact that he had come up with a business idea and it seemed to make sense. It wasn't just coming together because of his name. It was journalism. He loved that. His favorite part of George was talking to the Dalai Lama and even Larry Flint. He loved this interview with Larry Flint because Larry's kind of the ultimate rebel in a way. And the Supreme Court ruling, that's who John... Larry Flint was an underdog, and that's who John associated with. I mean, how could John Kennedy Jr. be an underdog? That's who we thought he was.
Politics is not merely pulling a lever on Election Day or covering a debate on Capitol Hill. Politics is really about personalities and ideas. It's about
He found himself with George. I mean, even if it failed, he knew all that magazine had done for him, and it had given an entree to a whole new world.
After years of trying to find his place in the world, it seemed that by his early 30s, John Jr. was poised to create his own version of what it means to be a Kennedy. It was a vision that, tragically, would never be realized.
Why don't we see any lights, John? John!
John Kennedy Jr. is about to fly with his wife and sister-in-law to a family wedding in Martha's Vineyard.
Good.
It is now 8:35 p.m. Only an hour of daylight remains. John should have left at 5:30. Each individual pilot has to make his own decision to fly after careful consideration of all the variables.
Ready to taxi, quit flight. Right turn around, northeast bound. Not permanent.
8:34 p.m. John contacts air traffic control. The conditions on the ground are slightly hazy.
The problem with haze is that you can take off and the first 1,000 feet or so as you're climbing out could be clear. But when you get higher, you could enter a haze layer and not be prepared for it. And that happens very often in the summer.
John is only certified for Visual Flight Rules, or VFR.
Ready to go, guys?
The theory behind VFR is that you will be able to maneuver the airplane by looking out the window and being able to determine the plane's relationship to the horizon.
When the horizon is not visible, the pilot is essentially flying blind. To be certified to fly under these conditions, a pilot must go through rigorous training, learning to use only instruments to navigate.
Making it right down for departure. Permanent right down with departure on 22.
John has very limited expertise in instrument navigation and is not certified. As they take off, John has left a goodwill note, which he will never read. John's departure is now so late that Lauren's hosts for her weekend on Martha's Vineyard arrive to pick her up just as she is leaving.
She's flying in with John and Carolyn. Are they here yet?
Haven't seen the plane. We checked with air traffic control.
John could have filed a flight plan as he left, but he did not.
It's a good idea, particularly on a night flight, to file a VFR flight plan. The advantage being that once you file and activate it, there will be someone waiting for you to cancel it when you arrive at your destination.
Some people will say John took too many risks, but he had to take those risks to assert his own manhood. Yes, it was too much, but the question is how far and where do you stop? And he was somewhat addicted to it. He just needed the rush.
Daylight is rapidly diminishing. In less than an hour, John, Carolyn, and Lauren will be dead. One year earlier, it seemed John Kennedy Jr. was set to fulfill the expectations of an adoring American public. His political magazine, George, was doing well. He was moving in all the right political circles, and he'd found the woman he wanted to spend his life with, publicist Carolyn Bessette.
How was the honeymoon, John? Hold it, please, for us. Look this way. Oh!
Foiling intense media speculation, he orchestrated a secret wedding on Cumberland Island off the Georgia coast.
John, we're not getting you. Can you look back up and look this way, Carolyn?
We weren't supposed to tell anybody. I remember when they told me in July. You know, it was a long time to keep it until September.
I remember him pumping his fist that they'd gotten it done. Like, yes, we did it. To her satisfaction. And it was a wonderful wedding, it really was.
The wedding made headlines around the world. They were portrayed as the perfect couple. But sparks flew between Carolyn and John from the moment they met.
He liked the fact that there was trouble there. And it wasn't until he married her, he saw that the trouble wasn't going to end.
She was strong-willed. I mean, she had her own point of view. She was not some little housewife or something like that was just going to sit there. She had sophisticated friends when she met them. She had a nice life. She comes from a very nice family. I mean, she had her own personality, and she had her own point of view.
As they faced up to their problems, the media onslaught was unbearable for Carolyn.
There was always some guy lurking around, and who would take her picture or run up to her, or just invade her space. And I don't think anybody can be prepared for that.
Then rumors of Carolyn's drug use began to surface in the tabloids.
Carolyn used coke the way most people used coke from that generation. When they partied, it's the chosen recreational drug of the fashion industry.
Next, John was spotted with ex-girlfriends and affairs were suspected, something his friends dispute.
He's a monogamous guy, frankly. You see his loyalty with his friends. It was the same things with his girlfriends. He had every skirt thrown at him on earth, frankly. He was an innocent. He was very innocent on that level, and you'd like to think that he was a little maybe more mysterious, but frankly, he stuck to his knitting.
Most damaging, John's magazine began to fail, and his ability to live up to his father's legacy was questioned. John hoped to save his marriage. He wanted his magazine to thrive again, and he wanted to establish his own reputation. All he needed was time. The sun has set. It's now nautical twilight. It's hazy, but not totally obscure. It will be completely dark in 10 minutes. For now, John is still able to fly with visual references.
As you get farther away from New York City, you're not going to be able to see lights enough to give you a straight line for the horizon. It's basically a black hole.
Flying over water at nighttime, you pretty much lose that horizon. You're solely referencing your instruments.
"20 minutes from his destination, John has two possible routes. He can fly up the coast to Connecticut and Rhode Island, keeping the lights on the shoreline as a visual reference, and then turn south over Cape Cod to the airport at Martha's Vineyard. This route will only add 5 minutes to his flight time.
Of all my trips I've made to Martha's Vineyard, I've always flown that particular route because it puts you over water the least distance.
Or he can take a riskier but shorter route and leave the coast and fly a direct line straight out over Rhode Island Sound and the Atlantic Ocean, a distance of 34 miles from the airport at Martha's Vineyard. Choosing the route is a pivotal decision.
Okay, we're leaving the coast.
There goes the coastline.
John chooses to fly the direct route, out over the ocean, into the void. This choice will cost him his life. In just 2 minutes, John will be flying in complete darkness. In 5 minutes, he'll be dead.
John, are we lost?
No, we're fine. Sit back.
Why don't we see any lights, John?
John is flying at 5,500 feet in complete darkness. He is 34 miles from the airport at Martha's Vineyard. He cannot see any visual landmarks, but he starts to descend. 9:39 p.m. There is still no sign of the lights at the airport.
Can you see anything out there?
No!
John levels off at 2,500 feet and searches desperately for some visual reference, a light, a horizon line, stars, anything to give him a sense of direction.
John!
He starts to become disoriented.
Spatial disorientation occurs when you don't refer to your instruments, and the natural tendency is to believe what your body is telling you.
John does not have enough experience in his new plane and is ill-equipped to fly in these conditions. He relies on his instincts just when he needs to focus on his instruments. The plane now banks sharply to the left and climbs. 9:40 p.m. Trying desperately to compensate for the left bank, he turns the yoke hard to the right. The plane slides into a descent, speeding toward the ocean. Completely disoriented, John believes the plane is now level and yanks the yoke towards him to bring the nose up. Instead, the plane banks even more to the right. The engine races as it picks up speed and enters a free fall called the graveyard spiral. The Saratoga plummets towards the ocean. There is no way John can recover.
I miss him, you know, I miss the little boy I knew, and, you know, I couldn't believe that he was going to finish this way.
Coast Guard will resume its air search in the morning.
Around the world, feelings of shock and disbelief resonate as news spreads of John Kennedy Jr.'s disappearance. The media descends on Martha's Vineyard as a massive search is ordered.
I knew that he was dead. They couldn't find but planes don't go missing.
There is a suitcase with a business card and the business card attached to a little plastic insert within the suitcase is in the name of Lauren Bassett.
John Kennedy Jr. died on the 16th of July, 1999. 6 days later, on the USS Briscoe, the Kennedys once again gather to bury one of their own as an entire nation mourns. With his death, the world will never know what his true contribution might have been.